Good evening to everyone. Today we will learn the hay making. Is one of the very simple technique, but which is very useful in case of the animal nutrition is concerned. And this is a revision as well as we can also say that useful to the veterinarians as such. So hay is a term that is used for the any material which is dried and feed to the fodders. So in this PowerPoint, we can see which are all the topics covered are the hay definition, then principles of hay making, then the how to check the quality of a good hay, then crops suitable for hay making, then the starvation, the stage of harvesting the crop for hay making, and also few of the points like important points of hay making, then methods of hay making. Different methods are there, so we are also going to tell about those methods of hay making as we have told yesterday about the preparation of the silage and also the haylage. So this chapter also considers the methods of haymaking and storage, advantages of haymaking, and also the other factors like losses in the haymaking. So coming to the first thing, that is what is the definition of haymaking? Haymaking is a process of converting green fodder or the forage into dry form, and which can be stored for long time, and also easily transported without danger of spoiling while keeping the minimum loss of the nutrients and dry matter. Or else simply what we can summarize this definition is it's a process of making the green forage into the dry form so that it can be stored for long time and easily transported, and we can also stop the spoiling up of the valuable fodder and also the nutrients. So in the hay making, moisture content of the green forage is normally 15 to 15%. From 70 to 90% is the normal thing which is present in the green grass, and it should be reduced to 15%, whereas in case of the silage it should be within 65 to 70%. So this can be done by manually or with the help of the draught animal power, or nowadays the mechanized things or machine things are also made, and these things can be stored very easily, then transported. Then also most of the farmers do depend upon the haymaking. And in this slide, important matters are two things. One is 15% is the moisture, and it has to be reduced from 70 to 15%. So the process of haymaking depends upon many of the things. Number one, the availability of the green fodder, number one, and the forages or the fodder both are same. Then which is the climate, what when we are making the hay, and third one is how much manpower is available with you for the hay making. So these are the three important factors. So under sub-humid and humid temperate climates, due to slowness of the drying, where there is always a rainfall or sometimes the moisture content is very high. So then what happens? The spoilage of the hay will happen, and it should be avoided by drying the crop as quickly as possible. Very quickly we can do it. So whereas in case of hot climates like the northern part of Karnataka or India, where rapid sun drying leads to a different type of losses due to the bleaching of the hay, with consequent losses of carotene and the different types of the vitamins. So this is another what you can say that the disadvantage of the things, especially the hot and hot climate. Whereas in case of the humid temperature, then due to the more and more moisture content, the fodder may be lost. Then, what are all the principles of the haymaking? In the process of haymaking, stomata means it's a part in the leaf that are open so that moisture loss is quick during first few hours. Whenever the fodder is harvested, in the first few hours, the stomata of the leaves are open so that the moisture loss is more and more. Then afterwards, due to the escape of water, due to the wilting, the stomata get closed and the water has to be fined waste out through the waxy epidermis of the leaves. So these are all the plant structures and stems of that particular border, and also the moisture content, where in which the stems take a little longer to evaporate. So for example, the fodder sources like the maize, etc., they take more longer time when compared to the paddy straw, because the paddy straws do contain the thick stem, whereas the maize and sorghum straws do have big succulent stem and take more time to dry, and the water content is also very high. That's 75 to 90%. So periodical tilting is very much required to get uniform drying. Then the rate of drying depends on weather. Which weather we have first? Suppose it's a weather, especially in the monsoon, etc., then it's impossible to make the hay to the dry to the extent of 15%. And sometimes there will be severe sunshine, wind, and the moisture content of the atmosphere is also there. And apart from this one, drying should be done as early as possible to minimize the losses. As early as possible to minimize the losses. Initially, before drying, the herbage will contain about 70 to 19% of the moisture, and this will have to be reduced between 12 to 15%. So as less as possible before hay and safety, or else if it is more, always there is a chance of the fungal infection. Then mycotoxicosis is another important possibility. So we have to look into this matter. So what are all the qualities of a very good quality hay? How we can say that how my hay is better than that of the other hay, whether it's having the quality and also the standards. So some of the principles are: good hay must contain the characteristic of green color of the crop as highly as available. But many times we have seen that this is not possible. But it must be low leaf shattering and maximum amount of the green color is retained by the hay, and it gives a rough idea about quantity of the carotene which is present in the green powder, especially how much carotene is present. And this is the one of the important nutrient that is required to the animals. So hence, the hay must, so one should see that there should be free from fungus, especially the hay should be free from fungus and bad odor. It should have a typical aroma. It should have a typical aroma, means a characteristic odor that is acceptable by most of the cattle. And the forage has been prepared at the method also, the aroma of the hay increases the palatability by the animals. And as we have seen, the buffaloes are usually reluctant to accept any unpalatable thing, and the Jersey or HF cattle, they can accept whatever the things offered by us. So this is another important thing. The typical aroma should be there, original aroma. Then qualities of the good hay should always, it has been repeated several times that it should be less than 15% always for safe, strong, and for the duration of the stay without risk of the fermentations and also the combustion. And it should maintain the leafiness of the original fodder that has to be retained, and it should be free from undesirable weeds. Sometimes the weeds may be toxic also, and it should be free from dust and oil, dust and or soil also. So as far as possible, we need to reduce the soil content, because while plucking the straws out of the earth, there are a lot of roots and which also contain different type of the soils. So they should contain less dust and also the soil. And crops suitable for haymaking. And yesterday we have seen what are all the crops for the silage making are the maize or the sorghum, etc. Similarly, the crops with thin stems and more leaves are better suitable for the haymaking as they dry faster than those with thick pithy stem and small leaves. Then the fodder crops having soft and pliable leaves and stems are always suitable for haymaking process. Then leguminous fodders like the green bersim, the green basin, lucerne, then cowpea can also be used to make the hay. Then, if shattering of the leaf is avoided. For example, the fodder maize, number one, maize is always a king of the hay or silage, whatever it may be. Sorghum and bajra are suitable for silage making rather than hay making because they contain very succulent fodder, the stem, etc. Then they can become one of the very good silage sources. Whereas in case of hay making, it's very difficult to reduce the moisture content to 15% in such cases, especially in case of the sorghum and also the part of the hay making is concerned. Then another thing what we can see is they should have very low uh, diameter worth of the stem before we are harvesting. And what are the crops suitable for haymaking? Number one, early cut graminous crops. Most of the early cut graminous crops are nutritious, are more suitable for haymaking. Then leguminous fodder crops, example, cowpea, lucerne, etc., should be harvested at flower initiation stage or when crown buds start to grow. Then grasses and similar fodder crops should be harvested at pre-flowering stage. Before flowering, it has to be done. So at this stage, the crop has maximum nutrients and green matter. So as the fodder matures naturally in the earth, then as the time advances, the nutrient quality reduces. Whereas after flowering and seeding, grasses do contain very few nutrients and they are not so palatable to the animal also and contain more unwanted, undigestible fiber material. So, what is the stage of harvesting the crop? At what time we need to cut the crop and make the hay. As plant matures, nutritive value of the fodder gradually decreases. And apart from this one, the protein and energy contents are very high, and dry matter content of the fodder is very low during early stage. And during the later stages, that is, crop is full bloom, the protein and digestibility it is always going down, but the total yield of the dry matter is increased. So the crop should be harvested just at pre-flowering stage when 10% of the crop is in the bloom. Very similar to that of the hay making, this silage making, this need to be done to harvest more nutrients and yield while making the hay. And during the wet and hot season, that's the kharif, the crop may be harvested in the early September when monsoons are declined, while during dry and cold rabi season, the crop may be harvested during February or March months. Then the stage of harvesting of every crop is written here. For example, the maturity effect of the Burmada grass. That's also a fodder quality. Suppose if in the 4 week, then the percent nutritive value will be 16.4%. Then it is the crude protein is 16.4%, then 29% fiber, then digestibility is 61%. So 6 weeks, then it reduces to 13.3, then the nutrient quantity, the fiber will increase to the extent of 31.6, whereas the digestibility becomes very less. So as the stage passes, we can see that there is gradual decline in the uh, especially the nutrient content. All these nutrient contents are going to be declined. So we need to harvest it in the proper season when it is containing the highest quantity of the nutrients. Then another thing is the kinds of the hay, legume hay, leguminous hay, then legume hay and legume, especially these contain the leguminous crop. So what are all these things? Cowpea, lucerne, berseem, then soybean and pea. These are the leguminous hay, and these do contain little more quantity of the digestible crude protein, and gives relatively a higher amount of total digestible nutrients, then contain more carotene, vitamin D and E, and they contain the more calcium and phosphorus, then also more palatable to the cattle, and they increase the milk yield if fed to the dairy cattle always. So leguminous crops like the lucerne, it's always better. Of course, we will get very low yield, whereas the berseem etc. may get more and more. Then kinds of the hay, non-leguminous. Number one, the non-leguminous always it is a common thing, especially the napier grass, sorghum, barley, bajra, oat, paddy, then this ragi and many more things. Then lawn legume hay are less palatable as compared to the leguminous hays, less palatable to the animal, to the haze. See, the losses of nutrient is always it is less. Losses of the nutrients it is always less when compared to the other things. So, what we can say is kinds of the hay or the mixed hay means the mixture of leguminous and non-leguminous fodders make mixed hay, so that we can balance the nutritional quality in terms of the fiber and also the nutrient content of the proteins. Soybean and Napier are important thing. Always they are mixed. Soybean and also Napier. Then pea and oats. Then cowpea and sorghum. So one is leguminous and the other one is non-leguminous. Then barley and lucerne are the mixed hay process. So it is compared to non-leguminous hay, the quality of the mixed may be expected to be better than that of the non-legume hay. Always it is anticipated. So important points for hay making are few of the points are there once again. So they should contain more leaf than that of the stems and tender and thin. Then it should contain 7 to 10% of the protein maximum. Then of course the harvested crop should be dried in field naturally under the sunlight, and when it reaches 60% dry matter, then it should be dried until it reaches 85% dry matter, and very less the 15% is the moisture. So sometimes the tilting may be required because the fodder which is under the lower surface area may not get exposed to the sunlight or the heat. Then hay should be dried as early as possible. Then there should be no loss of the leaves during harvesting, transportation, and drying. And the best time for harvesting is early morning, usually. Whenever the honeydews are there, that are dried off, and which helps the proper spreading and drying up of the grasses over the field under the sun rays. So it also reduces the moisture content to the extent of 5 to 10%. The suitable crop for hay making should be harvested during the flowering stage, that is the fourth week. Then methods of hay making, varieties of the methods of hay making are there, very similar to that of the silage, and we can go by one. The spreading forage crops field. Here you can see that the huge tractor is there in developed countries. Then it is going to the field where the crop is grown, then it's cut and spread throughout the field. And in the morning after dew dries, the bloom stage are harvested and spread in layers of 10 inch on ground level, like this, 10 inches on ground level. So the other crop layers need to be turned upside down and downside up periodically for effective, and ultimately our aim is to make it 15% moisture, less than 15% moisture. Hence the haymaking. Windrow's method is one of the important method then when compared to the other thing. The spreading is very simply done by almost all the farmers of India. Then using the machines or sometimes man who using the human power also. Whereas the windrow's method is after keeping hay for sun drying to be filled for 1 day and then collected into small heaps in the form of cone shape accordingly. So these are turned periodically until moisture level remains to an extent of the 15%. So this practice is very common in the hilly regions. The field during the rainy season should be avoided since the drying is low and there may be considerable loss of the nutrients due to plant enzyme activity. Then windrow's method, the advantages are no excess cost of the environment except the labor cost. So what's a windrow's method? It is collected the hay crops in for sun drying will be collected 1 day in a single day and collected into small heaps in the form of cone shape instead of spreading them into the 10%. Whereas uh, this is only done during the rainy season to avoid the drying slow and there may be considerable loss of nutrients. Then here the advantage of this thing is no excess cost involved in the labor, then no specialized structure is needed and no mechanization is needed. Reduce transport costs since hay is prepared at the site itself. Whereas the disadvantage, it is not possible to make hay during humid conditions. You know why? If rain loss nutrients are more, then the turning into may cause heavy loss of the nutrients and shattering loss also. Sometimes if there is a rain etc., then all the hay which is spread will be totally lost. So Windrow's method has got its own advantages and disadvantages. So this is the way the hay making is there. Here you can see that it is the hay are harvested in such a way that they are made into the cone shape. All these things are made. So this is the windrows method. Whereas farm fenced method is another one where the grasses after harvesting spread over layer on barbed wire. Here is a barbed wire or boundary of the farm, it has to be tilted once for twice or proper curing and drying. So barbed wire always we can make it to dry very fast because the air passes from one end to the another end. Whereas the tripod method is another method uh, which make three wooden or iron places with a height of 2.5 to 3 meters. So wooden or iron pieces are taken, then they are made into 2 to 2.5 to 3 meters. With the help of the ordinary rope or wire, a network is made above the frame. Then the grass is spread over the frame and is occasionally tilted with the help of long stick or bamboo for even drying. Then this is best method for hay making during rainy season because no water should enter inside the tripod or pyramid method. So this is the pyramid method, tripod or pyramid method. Here you can see that the poles are used to support the hay buds. So this is the advantage is drying is very quick and due to quick drying, the loss of the nutrient is very less because totally it is exposed to the sunlight. There is no direct contact of the hay with soil, and since the action of microbes is avoided, and the loss of nutrient is very less even though the rains during the making. So these are all the advantages. And barn drying is another thing where in which the hay can be prepared in barns, specially prepared for this, which has false floor or facility to blow either heated or non-heated air from ground surface with the help of the draft blowers. So this is suitable in adverse weather conditions where there is no sunlight at all. Then crops after harvesting first dried in the field itself till they lost. So this method remains higher level of the vitamin A. And after that crops are dried on the barn. The barn drying is not practiced in India. The barn drying, because the barn preparation itself may be somehow costly, and hence these are all the barbs, barn drying, and lot of powder can be stored, and sometimes it is also stored in bigger farms in certain parts of India also. So the advantages of barn drying is reduces the transport cost totally, saves time once itself can be stored. Then the losses of the nutrient is always avoided. The loss of the leaves is very less. So these are all the advantages. When coming to the disadvantages, the cost of drying is very high. Then the drying is not uniform since the crop layer facing lower quickly than that of the upper layer, whereas the turning is not possible for uniform drying, and sometimes it is impossible or not suitable under high humidity region, and losses due to the fermentation is slightly high when compared to the other methods. Then the dehydration of forages has to be done to remove the excess moisture from the forages by hot air circulation, than the rapid drying using the dryers. So the types of the dryers are the low temperature dryer, or they are also known as the tray dryer, or the conveyor belt dryers, which are three types: single belt, double belt, and multi belt conveyor belts are there, and the hay will enter inside. Then high temperature drying, then here rotary drum dryer is there, then pneumatic tower is there, and combination of both may also be there. Whereas the solar dryers with the help of the preserving the green fodder and carotenes in the fodder with the solar dryers, which are nowadays solar things are very very popular. And dehydration of the forages advantages is the fodders are dried very quickly, and loss of leaves is very much minimized. The plant enzymes are reducing enzymes. So many enzymes are there; they are reduced. Bigger bales or forage can also be dried. Whereas the disadvantages of the dehydration of the forages is it requires dehydration plant which is costly to construct. So the maintenance of the plant is also very costly. Processing is very high, and operation skill is very much required than that of any of other methods. Then the safety storage of the hay is another percent, because always we need to maintain the moisture content below 15%. So over drying also cause the under sunlight results in lot of loss of protein and also the carbohydrate, then carotene, whereas the under drying causes the fermentation just like the silage and formation of poor quality hay. So hay is generally stored in the following forms as the loose hay. So this is the after making the hay, this can be prepared under drying sun and last form whenever it is required. Then it can be stored in open environment like this, what we have shown in this photograph. And hay can be stacked or ground. Hay stored in platform and hay stacked on the trees also. Whereas this hay is planted on the earth. Then chopped hay is like this. You can go to the photograph. The herbaceous are cut into smaller pieces of 2 to 3 inches and dried where conditions for drying are very good and systems highly mechanized, and it is less bulky and better for mechanical handling. But it cannot be stored open environment because losses of the hay take place to wind and also rain. So this is the advantage and disadvantage of the chopped hay. Usually every farmer has got a chop cutter. Then uh, he can cut it to 2 to 3 inches and dry it where conditions. But this cannot be stored in open environment because losses of hay take place due to the wind and rain because it may fly away in the wind. Then the baled hay is, as usual, it is a machinized thing, and the hay is wrapped in a round ball shape. So that's why it is called as the baled hay. Originally, baling was hand, and then by the stationary machines are there, and it has been automated since 1950s with a lot of machineries when introduction of the pickup of the baler and big bales which can be individually handled by a tractor mounted in front of the loader and suitable for large scale farming. The round bales are simplest to make and very popular, and their shape prevents the rainwater also. Hay is compressed into small and big bales. So it is usually the cubical bundles as shown in this particular photograph, and it requires less space and also transportation is very easy. Then the wafers, you know that the wafers, especially the chips, aloo chips, etc., are also called as the wafers. Means wafered hay is dense and free flowing, so it can be easily transported and put to the cattle very easily, handle and store. And field units are available, but it is expensive. Such house need to be constructed. So they are used for high quality legume in case of hay climates which allow rapid drying. Then the long hay is chopped into 3.5 centimeter long when compressed in wafering machine. Then losses are lower with baling. So this is the way how it is wafers are stored. Then the pelleted hay is another thing. We can make the pellets of the hay also. So after grinding the hay with the hammer mill, it is compressed into smaller flakes. Then with 4 inches long, smaller pieces into 4 inches long. And it is palatable and reduces feeding loss and storage. So hay is directly put inside the hammer mill. Then airflow dryer is there. Then the pellet making machine is there. So ultimately, you can see that green hay pellets are made. This is very tasty to the animals also. They like it very much, and also feeding loss and the storage are very less. But we need to purchase all these mills, especially this type of the mills, and the compressed hay will be pelleted. Then advantage of hay making is always the hay provides the nutrient feeds to the livestock during the season when there is no fodder or scarcity of the fodder, and good quality legume may replace certain amounts of the concentrates in the ration and thereby shall reduce the cost of the production, and the ration of the animal can be balanced with the help of very good quality hay. So we can reduce the concentrates totally by feeding the animals with good hay. Then losses in hay making are also very few, and we can see that uh, to measure the nutrient losses during the drying, etc., it depends upon the type of the storage species, especially the kind of hay making equipment, then how we are going to store it with facilities, and weather conditions at harvesting, drying, and storing. The energy loss of the foray during hay making can vary a wide, especially wide range of 5 or 100%. And under good drying, dry matter losses are between 15% and 18% with rain damage and up to 30% of the dry matter. Then measures to minimize the nutrient losses. So in general, average hay making process led to 24 to 28% loss in the forage dry matter, and most of which during the harvest and about 21% during the storage. So to stage of maturity, over drying, especially for leafy pastures, and time of baling is also some of the important things. A careful follow-up of the optimum harvesting stage, then length of drying period is a very important thing. So once again, the hay losses need to be made very minimized, and it depends upon the producer's skill and his experience, which are very important. Depends upon the judgment of the producer. May hay of the minimizing laughter is due to the dry the hay herbage as rapidly as possible and handle with care thereafter. So this increases the shelf life. And losses due to the shattering up of the leaves. Whenever the hay is being cut, etc., then shattering up of the leaves happen, and because very common in case of the legumes, because they do have very smaller leaf size. Then the bursting, cowpea, etc., which are dried earlier than that of the stems. So if drying is prolonged without turning, the leaves become brittle and shattered, then unpalatable. As nutrients are rich and concentrated in the leaves, shattering up of the leaves result in loss of the nutrients, namely the vitamins, total digestible nutrients, TDN, and sometimes the minerals also. So this loss can be reduced if forages are chopped before or during them for the hay. Then leguminous hay should be transported from the field early in the morning so that there should be the honey dew. There is less shattering up of the leaves. And bleaching losses are also there in the sun drying. What we can see is due to the overexposure of the fodder in sun for prolonged period also causes lot of losses of carotene and also the vitamin A. If green grasses are exposed for the sunlight for prolonged period without turning, all the carotene will be totally lost. So this about 150 to 200 ppm of carotene in green grass may be reduced to 5 to 10 ppm due to the bleaching long time in sun dry. So conserve carotene, drying the fodder in tripod stand is always it is recommended. Leaching is another thing where the prolonged rains during the preparation of the hay. So several losses due to the leaching counts due to the loss of the protein, then NFE, soluble minerals, vitamin, and TDM will also be lost. So during the rainy seasons, then on the crops harvested for the hay, then re-wetting may also be dried, which is much more serious than that of the rain. And newly cut herbage can cause both leaching and increase mold damage. So increase in mold damage is one of the dangerous thing to the cattle, and immediately we may not see the effect, but the prolonged use definitely you will see the effect. And apart from this one, if the moisture content is more and stored more time, there will be a fermentation. Then the plant enzymes will start acting, and these soluble carbohydrates produce carbon dioxide. As soon as the crop is mown, the enzymatic degradation or oxidation of the sap and the activity of the bacteria and molds on the crop surface causes many losses also. In normal hay making process, some of the nutrients are lost due to the fermentation itself. Hence, the major loss is the carbohydrate fermentation always. Then sometimes few of the proteins are also lost during the leaching season. Then losses due to the fermentation are still there. Fermentation are more there, not altered. Crop is not altered sufficiently to beat the heat and serious damage can always happen. And uh, sometimes the turning must be prompt and adequate. Then sometimes there may be a growth of the fungus also. Then we need to see that the fungal growth is very minimal, and if there is a fungal growth, we need to discard that particular hay for cattle use. And the fermentation of the starch, if it is already started, then we need to discard the hay, and it is estimated to the loss of about 5 to 9% in the dry matter whenever the fermentation starts in case of hay making. Oxidation, mechanical leaf loss. Oxidation, when rainwater makes hay wet, the oxidation of nutrients takes place. So this results in loss of sugars and starch. Then mechanical leaf loss occurs during the turning and field harvesting. Then spoilage in the stock bale, always it is there because it may also contain too high moisture content and poorly designated stacks which allow rain penetration inside the fodder is concerned. Then the ideal moisture content of the stacking baling depends upon the type of the crop and site and experience, and field judgment must be general guide. The farmer must judge whether the UAA is suitable for consumption of the animals or not by his own experience. So ultimately, the take-home message is the hay should be contain the 15% moisture. Then spoilage in the stack or the bale, always moisture meters are not generally available for non-convention to use in the field. So the extreme cases, the fermentation may raise the temperature, we know why, to levels where spontaneous combustion take place. And poorly cured or moldy hay may lead to poor intake or feed refusal by the cattle and may contain lot of mycotoxins. So moldy hay also gives rise to human disease known as the farmer's lung. If a farmer handles the moldy hay, then farmer's lung or the respiratory problem of a characteristic disorder may be produced. Then sometimes burnt hay due to the excess moisture may also happen. So the word burnt is used not related to the fire, but it is due to the nutrient and digestibility losses, as usual, is observed due to the drying up of the forage and loss of nutritive value. Carbohydrates, nitrogenous substances, and vitamins are known to reduce during the hay making process, and loss of dry matter to the extent of 20 to 30% in legumes, whereas it is 10 to 15% in many of the grasses. Loss of protein is 28%, loss of keratin 90%, highest. Loss of energy is up to 25% itself. So with this, we are going to stop this lecture, or already we have learned much about the hay making and also the process of silage making, then also the process of concentrate making, and all these things are dealt. And please go through this thing so that you can study it very well for the examination is concerned. And have a good day, good night, and goodbye.